Taiwan and Ukraine, despite their geographical distance, are islands of freedom in their respective regions. Taiwan, a vibrant democracy, stands in stark contrast to the authoritarian regime across the Taiwan Strait. Ukraine, having tasted freedom after the fall of the Soviet Union, is fighting to preserve its independence. These nations challenge the authoritarian playbook. Their resilience is a testament to the enduring power of democratic ideals. The struggles of Taiwan and Ukraine are not isolated incidents. They are symptoms of a larger trend, the erosion of the rules-based international order. Authoritarian powers are testing the resolve of democratic nations. Their actions threaten global stability. If Taiwan falls, global security and economic stability would be at risk. Control over Taiwan's semiconductor industry would give China unprecedented leverage. China's success would embolden other authoritarian regimes. The fall of Ukraine would be equally disastrous. It would destabilize Europe and set a dangerous precedent. The humanitarian cost would be immeasurable. Russia's disregard for international law encourages other rogue actors. The world stands at a crossroads. The choices we make today will determine the course of the 21st century. Will we stand by and watch, or will we rise to the challenge? We must act decisively. The fight for Taiwan and Ukraine is a fight for democracy. It's a fight we cannot afford to lose. In February 2022, Russian tanks crossed into Ukraine, shattering peace in Europe and signaling a new era of geopolitical tension. The invasion was a stark warning of the dangers posed by authoritarian regimes with expansionist ambitions. For China, it was both an opportunity and a cautionary tale. The parallels between Ukraine and Taiwan are impossible to ignore. Both are democracies under threat from powerful neighbors with territorial ambitions. If Russia could invade Ukraine, why couldn't China do the same to Taiwan? The invasion of Ukraine serves as a stark warning for China. Russia's miscalculation has led to a protracted war, fierce resistance, and a united international front. Economic sanctions have crippled Russia, while military aid has bolstered Ukraine. The invasion has galvanized international opinion against Russia, exposing its propaganda. The swift, united response shows the world won't tolerate aggression. The economic fallout reminds China of its own vulnerabilities. The lessons from Ukraine are clear. Aggression comes at a steep price. Miscalculation can be devastating for the aggressor and the world. As the war in Ukraine rages on, China finds itself at a crossroads. The temptation to seize the moment, to exploit the West's distraction and make a move on Taiwan, must be strong. But the risks are undeniable. China's leaders, known for their long-term strategic thinking, are no doubt weighing their options carefully. The war in Ukraine has provided a wealth of information about Western military capabilities and the effectiveness of economic sanctions. China will use this information to refine its own strategies. The world watches nervously, wondering what lessons China will draw from the conflict in Ukraine. At first glance, the icy plains of Eastern Europe and the sun-drenched island of Taiwan might seem worlds apart. Yet beneath the surface, a profound connection emerges, a shared narrative of defiance against authoritarian aggression. Both Ukraine and Taiwan find themselves on the front lines of a global battle for democracy. Ukraine faces an immediate threat from Russia, while Taiwan contends with the shadow of mainland China. Both nations stare across a divide, not just geographical but ideological. The world watches these struggles unfold, recognizing the inherent interconnectedness of these seemingly disparate conflicts. A victory for authoritarianism in one theater emboldens those who seek to erode freedom in others. Beyond the geopolitical parallels, a more tangible link binds Taiwan and Ukraine, the global semiconductor industry. Taiwan, with its world-leading chip foundries, has emerged as the linchpin of this vital supply chain. Ukraine plays a crucial role in the production of neon gas, essential for chip manufacturing. The Russian invasion of Ukraine disrupted neon gas supplies, highlighting the fragility of global supply chains. China, aware of its dependence on Taiwan for semiconductors, watched these developments with concern. The semiconductor struggle underscores the strategic importance of Taiwan as a technological powerhouse. Beyond the geopolitical chessboard, the struggles of Taiwan and Ukraine tap into a deeper wellspring of human experience, the yearning for freedom. These aspirations transcend national borders and cultural differences. The people of Taiwan and Ukraine have chosen the path of democracy. They have tasted freedom and embraced the responsibilities of self-governance. Their struggles remind us that democracy requires constant vigilance and active participation. The world has a moral obligation to stand with those fighting for their freedom. The fight for Taiwan and Ukraine is a fight for the very soul of the 21st century. The interconnected fates of Taiwan and Ukraine have become a subject of intense scrutiny worldwide. Think tanks churn out detailed analyses, wargaming scenarios that range from the optimistic to the terrifying. The consensus is clear: the stakes could not be higher for the future of global democracy. Dr. Michael Beckley argues that the world has entered a new era of great power competition. He warns that the West must shed its illusions of a rules-based international order. Despite diverse opinions, one thing is clear: the world watches these events with urgency and trepidation. The decisions made in key capitals will shape the geopolitical landscape for generations. One pressing question is whether the West's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine has deterred further aggression. The unprecedented sanctions on Russia have yet to alter its strategic calculus. This raises questions about the effectiveness of deterrence in the 21st century. If Russia is willing to incur such costs, what message does that send to China? Some experts argue that the West's response has been too little, too late. Others contend that the sanctions will eventually cripple the Russian economy, forcing reconsideration of its actions. Amidst the grim pronouncements, some experts find hope in the resilience of Ukraine and Taiwan. The Ukrainian people have mounted a spirited defense against a superior adversary. Taiwan has taken significant steps to bolster its defenses against mainland China. The spirit of defiance in both nations is their greatest asset. This spirit will ultimately determine the outcome of these struggles. The world watches, hoping that the forces of freedom will prevail. Imagine a world where the dominoes of democracy fall, replaced by authoritarian rule. The stakes in Ukraine extend far beyond its borders, encompassing the principles of sovereignty and self-determination. Should Ukraine fall, the consequences would reverberate globally, emboldening authoritarian regimes. The balance of power would be shattered, replaced by a more chaotic world. The most immediate impact would be felt in Europe, where NATO members would face existential threats. China would analyze the West's response, calculating its own moves in the Taiwan Strait. The fall of Ukraine would embolden autocrats worldwide, validating their belief that democracy is weak. China, in particular, would see an opportunity to advance its agenda in Taiwan. A world where authoritarianism is ascendant is one where human rights are trampled. The values of democracy and the rule of law would be replaced by power politics. Global stability would be profoundly affected, with conflicts more likely and difficult to contain. The foundations of the global order would be irrevocably shattered. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. The situation in Ukraine echoes the past, reminding us of the dangers of appeasement and the high cost of inaction. The ghost of Neville Chamberlain haunts the corridors of power, a cautionary reminder that appeasement emboldens aggressors. The lessons of the 1930s should be etched in our memory, warning against repeating past mistakes. The parallels between Putin's Russia and Hitler's Germany are unsettling. Both regimes are driven by nationalism, historical revisionism, and disdain for democratic values. Both use force to achieve their objectives, justifying aggression with a warped interpretation of history. The world cannot afford to ignore these warning signs. The stakes are too high. The Russian invasion of Ukraine shattered the post-Cold War complacency in Western capitals. Russian tanks bombed cities, and desperate pleas highlighted the threat to sovereignty and self-determination. The West's response evolved into a strategy to deter Russia, support Ukraine, and bolster NATO's eastern flank. Military aid, including Javelin missiles and high-tech drones, has been crucial for Ukraine's defense. NATO's importance has resurged, reaffirming its role against Russian aggression. Troop deployments to Eastern Europe signal NATO's readiness to defend its territory. Critics argue more support is needed, while calls for a no-fly zone face reluctance due to escalation fears. The West's response to Russia's aggression extends beyond military aid and troop deployments. The US, EU, and allies have imposed sanctions to cripple Russia's economy and isolate it globally. Targeting Russia's central bank and oligarchs, these sanctions freeze assets and cut off international capital. The impact on Russia's economy has been swift and severe. The ruble has plummeted, inflation has soared, and businesses have closed. Russians now face the consequences of their government's actions. The West's message is clear: aggression comes at a price. Diplomatic efforts have rallied global support for Ukraine. Even traditional allies like China and India have expressed reservations. The UN General Assembly overwhelmingly condemned Russia's aggression. Support for Ukraine includes military, economic aid, and a global platform. President Zelensky's pleas have galvanized global support. The West's response highlights the power of alliances and democratic values. The conflict's outcome is uncertain, but the world has changed, and the West has risen to the challenge. We've journeyed from the bustling streets of Taipei to the embattled towns of Ukraine, tracing the threads of a story that binds these two seemingly disparate nations together. The parallels are stark, the lessons undeniable. Two democracies, each a beacon of freedom in their respective regions, facing down the threat of authoritarian aggression. Two peoples separated by geography and culture, united by a shared determination to chart their own destiny. The world watches, holding its breath as the drama unfolds, acutely aware that the stakes extend far beyond the borders of these nations. This is a battle for the soul of the 21st century, a test of whether democracy, with all its messy imperfections, can withstand the seductive allure of authoritarianism. Will we stand idly by as the rules-based international order, painstakingly constructed over decades, crumbles under the weight of naked aggression? Or will we rise to the challenge, summoning the collective will to defend the values that have made our world a more just and prosperous place? The hour of decision is upon us. The choices we make today, the actions we take or fail to take, will resonate for generations to come. We cannot afford to be naive about the threat we face. Authoritarian regimes, emboldened by their growing economic and military might, sense weakness in the resolve of democratic nations. They see opportunity in division, exploiting our differences to sow discord and undermine our unity. The lessons of history are clear: appeasement doesn't work. Ignoring warning signs only emboldens aggressors. The time for complacency is over. The world must awaken to the reality that the future of freedom hangs in the balance. Amidst uncertainty and danger, there is hope. The courage of the Ukrainian people inspires the world. The determination of the Taiwanese people is unwavering. These struggles are part of a larger resistance against tyranny, a testament to the enduring human spirit yearning for freedom. From Hong Kong to Minsk, Myanmar to Afghanistan, people are rising, demanding their rights and freedoms. Their struggle is our struggle. Their fight is our fight. We cannot turn away. We must defend freedom. If we fail, tyranny will take root closer to home. The road ahead is long, but we are not alone. The world is waking up to authoritarian threats. Alliances are being strengthened, partnerships forged. The future is ours to shape. Let us choose wisely. Let us choose courage, solidarity, and hope. Let us stand together for freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. In the words of John F. Kennedy, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.